Johnny, first of all, I mean, obviously what you've done is just extraordinary. Walk me through, if you can, what happened. I know you were pulling out of the gas station when you saw the shooter.
Yes, sir. Actually, I had pulled out of the gas station and taken a side street that led to the residential street to the intersection where the church is. And before I had a chance to turn, that's whenever I saw the shooting start, and that's whenever I stopped to see what was going on.
And what did you see? The man who was firing his weapon at the shooter, he came up to your truck. Had you seen him before shooting at the shooter?
No, I had seen the shooter coming from about where the cars were parked that the church attendees' vehicles were. And on the opposite side of the road, I had seen Mr. Williford coming and shooting back with his rifle.
So he came up to your vehicle and explained what had happened, and what did you say?
He very briefly explained what happened, and he got in and he just said, follow him, and I said, let's go. And
you didn't have any hesitation?
We went and we pursued. No, sir.
Johnny, knowing what you know now, I mean, would you do the same thing over again?
I would do it 100 times over, sir.
And when the police got there, how quick did it all finish?
It was actually a very drawn out, long ordeal, but once one car showed up from the police, it seemed like in a matter of just a minute, everybody that needed to be there was there, and they pushed me and Mr. Williford back to safety, to a viewpoint actually where we couldn't see any action anymore. But from there the police really did a great job. They made sure everyone was safe. They made sure that they took every precaution to make sure everything went down exactly how it was supposed to without anybody else getting hurt.
An astounding admission by the U.S. Air Force and Department of Defense that is launching that review. Just an incredible, extensive, violent record that this gunman had. He struck and choked his ex-wife. He hit his stepson so hard that it fractured the skull. There was the animal cruelty misdemeanor charge in which a witness says he hit a dog, a husky, with closed fists. And there was also a rape charge or rape accusation he was a suspect for, but was never charged. The Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores out here in San Antonio says that this gunman was able to successfully purchase 2 guns in 2016 and 2017 because he passed that background check. So now the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense really doing some soul searching and asking how this was able to happen and why it was not reported to the FBI. We are now knowing more about the motive. The investigators say it had nothing to do with religion or race, but rather likely a family dispute. Text messages threatening his mother-in-law were sent before the shooting. We're also reportedly hearing that among the victims was his grandmother-in-law. The mother-in-law was known to attend this church, but was not inside the church at the time. Also, we're now learning more about the extent of this gunman's injuries. We know that as he was in that vehicle and died, he shot himself in the head, but before that, he called his father telling him that he thought he wasn't going to survive because of 2 gunshot wounds he received from that hero resident who engaged the suspect outside of the church. Listen to what authorities said yesterday.
Today, the autopsy was performed on the shooter, and if you notice, I used shooter instead of the suspect's name. We do not want to glorify him and what he's done. But the autopsy was conducted this morning, and what I can tell you is he sustained 3 gunshots wounds.
Notice the police are no longer saying the suspect's name. A vigil will be held tonight at a local high school here in Floresville.
Really tough stuff. Brian, inside the church, what more information, what more details do you have about that?
Just horroring stuff. 450 rounds unloaded inside the church. Witnesses say he walked into the middle of the aisle and began shooting, not only from the outside, but when he went in, he shot the cameraman and the audio crew inside first. He then began to shoot babies first at point-blank range. The gunman was walking down the aisle and was just shooting. People didn't really have any chance to go anywhere, so they hit the ground hiding. We also know that he specifically was shooting at people's cell phones that were trying to call police. One woman saying that she was shot at 3 times. Her phone was shot 3 times. We're also learning more about what the parents were doing inside. Many of the victims inside were children. Like Joanne Ward, she fell on her children to protect them. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to protect 2 of her children, Emily as well as Brooke, both 7 and 5 years old. 2 others did survive. Her 9-year-old daughter and her 5-year-old son, Ryland. Ryland is in the hospital right now. He is recovering at University Hospital with 5 gunshot wounds. He walked into this church and said, quote, "Everyone die," expletive, according to a witness. There are now at least 13 victims still in the hospital. 4 of them are children.
A Fox News alert: the gunman in Sunday's church massacre in Texas was released with a bad conduct discharge from the U.S. Air Force after serving 12 months confinement for beating up his wife and child.
But the Air Force failed to report this to the FBI as required. So what's being done right now to make sure this does not happen again?
Let's ask Air Force Secretary Dr. Heather Wilson. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson, for being with us. Good morning. So how can we make sure this doesn't happen again going forward? And how did this even happen?
Yeah, what happened in Texas was absolutely awful on this weekend. I mean, I think all of us were just heartbroken. But that's why we've launched a full-scale review of what happened in this case and every other one like it.
What about going through the rolls to find out who else was dishonorably discharged or court-martialed, and to see if they are actually labeled correctly?
That's why we're looking at all of the other cases like it.
All branches too? Do you think they're all doing that?
We're working with the Defense Department Inspector General to look across the Defense Department. My responsibility is to make sure the Air Force is checked.
Sure, because there are different degrees of essentially a badness. If you are dishonorably discharged, that does not necessarily mean you can't get a gun, right?
That's true. In this case, it should have been reported and put in the database, and that's why we've launched this complete, wide, full-scale review of this case and of all others like it.
But his crimes were so bad that he should not have been able to get a gun.
That's correct.
Okay.
Here is Ted Cruz last night with Shannon Bream.
Under federal law, it was illegal for this individual to purchase a firearm. He had a conviction for a crime that's punishable by more than a year in prison, and he had a conviction for multiple domestic violence crimes. Both of those, it's already ineligible. But several things happened. Number one, the Air Force, the Obama administration, didn't report those convictions to the NCIS database. That's an endemic problem. It's a problem with the federal government. It's a problem with the states. And so when he went in to buy the guns, they ran the background check, and they didn't find it because it wasn't in the database.
Do you see it as a problem? Endemic? Is Senator Cruz characterizing that accurately?
Well, we're looking at all of our databases and all other cases like this, and if we find a problem, we'll fix it. Now, we act in accordance with our values as an Air Force: integrity first and excellence in all we do, and that's what we're doing.
Let's talk about your priorities as Secretary of the U.S. Air Force. I know that you're concerned about funding because, you know, you could use some more cash to buy some more stuff.
Well, this is the 9th year of the last 10 that we've started with a continuing resolution. The Budget Control Act is still the law of the land, and we need to restore the readiness of the force so that those airmen we're about to swear in are able to be trained and prepared to protect this country. Mm-hmm. And so we need to lift those budget control caps and kind of take it off cruise control and let the Congress drive this one.
Well, where's the money come from, though?
Well, the Congress needs to prepare.
It's not like Congress spends money wisely in every case.
I'm sorry?
It's not like Washington spends our money wisely when we send it to
them. Well, my job is to cost-effectively modernize this force and make sure we use every dollar to improve the readiness and lethality of the Air Force.
No branch has been leaned on more than the Air Force. You guys have been nonstop, really, since the first Persian Gulf War.
27 straight years the United States Air Force has been in combat, and our readiness has declined. And that doesn't mean we won't go. If the nation needs us, we'll go. If we're not ready, it means fewer airmen are going to come back. And so our job is try to make sure they're trained, ready, and equipped for anything.
Are you
our
happy
nation
with
has.
the equipment that's made here in America? I was listening to the president this morning. He was with the president of South Korea. He said they're going to spend billions of dollars to buy equipment, military equipment that's made here in the U.S. because he says it's the best of the best. It's also going to create jobs. Are you happy with the equipment? Are our men and women, are they ready and equipped?
The equipment that we're buying and modernizing is first-rate equipment, but a lot of our equipment is old. We've got aircraft that are older than my parents. And while a lot of them have been modernized, we also need some new equipment, and we're modernizing fighters, bombers, tankers, space assets across the board.
I thought the budget just passed. The budget just passed. In that budget, do you believe the chairman of Armed Services, which is John McCain, has allocated you guys enough money?
The budget, we're still waiting for the defense authorization bill and a budget deal. The proposal that the president put forward as the president's budget starts to turn the corner on readiness. We need steadiness and predictability in order to restore the force.
All right, very good.